Hello, this is Mongo Slay, and if you guys have been paying attention to this channel for any length of time, you know that I've been talking a lot about entertainers and other grifters that have been taking place into this election, this 2020 election. So Ice Cube decided to jump in, and he created this what's called, or he's been pushing this contract with Black America. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the contract with Black America. We're also going to look at Ice Cube. We're also going to look at the Platinum Plan from Donald Trump. We're going to be looking at all this stuff, and let me tell you about, before we really even get into this Platinum Plan, I've skimmed some of it. It's 22 pages. We're not going to read it all. It is some of the most economically and socially illiterate shit I have ever read. It is, we're not even talking about socialism here. We're talking about basically a racial takeover of most industries in the United States. We're talking about massive government spending in everything. It is absolutely absurd. Absurd. All of this is the most absurd, goofiest shit I have ever seen. Look, I understand. Ice Cube wants to help, but this ain't the way. So let's read an article from Double XL magazine. It makes sense to do Double XL because it's a rap thing, and they have cataloged a lot of the mean tweets that Ice Cube has gotten. He's gotten a lot of mean tweets. Man, he's got a lot of mean tweets. I told you guys about, man, let's just go through this. Ice Cube working with Trump administration, according to Trump's senior advisor. So, Ice Cube appears to have responded to claims that he assisted the Trump administration after President Trump's senior advisor, Katrina Pearson, revealed that the rapper was working with the administration yesterday. Now he's confirmed that he spoke with Trump campaign regarding the Contract with Black America program. Facts. I put out the CWBA. He tweeted this afternoon. Both parties contacted me. Dems said we'll address the CWBA after the election. Trump campaign made some adjustments to their plan after talking to us about the CWBA. President Trump may have found himself an unpredictable ally in the rap community. On Tuesday, October the 13th, Katrina Pearson, a senior advisor for the Trump administration, announced that Ice Cube had been working with the President of the United States to develop his Platinum Plan for his presidential campaign. The Platinum Plan is an outline of Trump's platform, which pledges to bring almost $500 billion into Black communities, provide better and affordable health care, offer access to capital for Black businesses, educational opportunities, and more. Pearson tweeted news of the West Coast rapper's working relationship with the Trump administration yesterday. Shout out to Ice Cube for the willingness to step up and work with the Donald Trump administration to develop the Platinum Plan, in case you missed it, and which is the tweet the lady said. In an Instagram video shared by the 51-year-old rapper on October the 11th, prior to Trump's advisor claiming that Cube is working with the Trump administration, Ice Cube explained why he decided to dive into politics. During the nearly 8-minute long clip, Cube chooses not to align himself with the Democrat or Republican Party, but instead affirms he has made contacts to talk about real issues. I've been making contacts trying to talk about these real issues. Straight up, I believe the Democrats have. They've been nice, a Cube started. They've been cordial, so to speak. I don't really see them pushing their policies in any different direction. They're still talking this minority people of color shit that don't necessarily include us, that don't necessarily include Black Americans, especially descendants of slaves. He did, however, confirm that he met with Republicans to discuss policies that says that the political party has proposed $500 billion, presumably to the Black community. We also brought the Republicans in shit. They brought us in. We talked to them. Ice Cube went on. They moved their agenda a lot because of what we said. You know, they put $500 billion on the table. Who knows what's really going to happen? I just know one of them going to win. I don't know if it can really matter to us. We got to just push whoever's in there, because ain't nobody really solved our problems. People say we can't take another 4 years of this. Black people, we can't take anything. Shit. We can take anything. Shit. The news of Ice Cube supposedly working with the Donald Trump administration follows the debut of Joe Biden campaign involving battle rappers to explain the importance of voting earlier this week. They also pushed policy, but they pushed a political agenda in not just voting, but a political agenda to vote for Biden. Obviously, that's why it says Joe Biden, but they didn't specify. You can read more about the Platinum Plan here. We will go through the infographic of the Platinum Plan, but it's going to be a lot of overlap with the Contract of Black America. We got to hit some of this stuff really hard. After Pearson shared the news on social media and the information picked up across social media today, Ice Cube was met with backlash on Twitter from fans and critics alike. Hearing that Ice Cube, one of my favorite rappers from the early 90s, is a Trump supporter is crushing. Fuck Ice Cube. An Ice Cube fan wrote on Twitter. What's fucked up about this Ice Cube situation? He didn't have the courage to say he was working with Trump. He used blackness as his platform to speak on Trump's behalf. He's a coward. We had to learn about this partnership with Trump from a white woman 20 days before an election. Another person wrote, Pearson is of mixed race, born to a black father and a white mother. Hilarious. Okay. So they've been very, very angry. People are very, very angry with Ice Cube. Very, very angry with Mr. Ice Cube. So, he said, so you even got white people talking about, oh, the money must have been good. Ice Cube is MAGA. Most people, Ice Cube ain't never said shit about being MAGA. He wrote up this plan that is mostly left-wing shit. If they actually read it, but see, this is the thing. They don't care about fixing the problems in the black community. They are completely blind on the problems of the black community. They will turn a blind eye, cover their eyes, and set themselves on fire rather than tell the goddamn truth. If you read the goddamn we're going to get to the contract right after I get done with this part. We're going to get into the contract with Black America, and you're going to see how fucking absurd it is. It is 99% left-wing shit. And that's from the preface. The preface is 99% left-wing shit. Matter of fact, it's 100% left-wing shit. There's some shit that libertarians and, some probably milquetoast Republicans can understand and probably enjoy in that stuff. But it's almost all of what the left wing wants. And they're still mad. They're mad because Ice Cube is going straight to the source and trying to fix the problem. But the problem doesn't revolve around them. They don't get to fix the problem because they actually fundraise off the problem. They don't want to fix the problem because they want to fundraise off the problem. Now, Ice Cube's plan, this bullshit, the Platinum Plan is not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work. It's bullshit. But psychologically, it turns some people into Trump supporters because they're going to be like, oh shit, Ice Cube is working with Trump. That's cool. If Ice Cube is not necessary. Ice Cube ain't been, on boots on the ground in a long time. But he is an OG, has been, around and very vocal. He's especially been really vocal lately. But I almost not wait to get into this contract with Black America. Is nonsense. But you got people saying that Ice Cube went from fuck the police to Blue Lives Matter. He didn't say none of that. You talking about people saying that I told y'all that Ice Cube is working with Trump. And all these people they're just so angry. Look at this shit. It's absolutely bizarre. The amount of people who feel like they own a person. And that's what it is though. It's like blackness is not a skin color. It's a political position. You own niggas. That's kind of how it is. Like if you a Democrat, it's not just that you're a Democrat, they own you. But let's stop fucking around and get into this contract with Black America, man. Because I'm gonna read some of this stuff, and it's gonna be absolute insanity. All right, so this is the contract with Black America. The preface was written by Derek Hamilton, professor and executive director of the Kirwan Institute at Ohio State University, and incoming Harry Cohen, professor of economics and urban policy at and university professor at the new school. So this is just a preface, and I'm not going to read it all. I just want to say this. I'm going to read some of it. This is from this is the preface. I'm going to read the second paragraph. Authentic agency is grounded in resources, and America's unjust racial wealth gap is rooted in a history that has privileged white people with financial advantages to buy, quote unquote, buy, crucial additional intergenerational advantages for themselves and their children. Government policy and literal government giveaways provided them with finance, education, land, and infrastructure to accumulate and pass down wealth from one generation to the next. In contrast, Black America was largely excluded, and when they were able to accumulate land and enterprise, it was subject to seizure by the government, complicit theft, fraud, and terror. Now, this is ahistorical, of course. You notice that he didn't use any citations. Now, it is true that when you had Black communities like Rosewood, Florida, which was burned to the ground, like Tulsa, which is, they'll talk about Tulsa all day, was also burned to the ground. There are parts of this that is true. Now, what you do find out here is that when you talk about literal government giveaways, you still have that today. They're called HUD houses. People literally give away land. The government gives you a house. So it doesn't make sense that when people talk about this kind of stuff, they always divorce it from stuff that's really kind of already going on, right? So you do have land giveaways, like they had land giveaways for the West, I believe, because the government had, after the Louisiana Purchase, I believe they also had some land giveaways, but that stuff was all free land. There was there was people there, but you had to, there was engines. So, if you could fight off the Indians, then you got to keep the land. But one of the issues that we got here is that people seem to believe that if you bought something 100 years ago, that you still have it today. That is absolutely financially illiterate. Most people, the vast majority of people who have any sort of wealth in the United States, either inherited it from a direct ancestor, like a father or a grandfather, and that's about it. All these people with this, you had wealth going back thousands of years. No, that's not true. The problem here is you're looking at things from a racial perspective. Racial groups are the wrong unit of analysis in these situations. Families are really a more closely interesting piece of this whole ordeal, because my family can buy a house. I can pass that house down to my son. And then my son could sell the house. That house is no longer in my family, which means whatever wealth was generated from that house is gone. Okay? I no longer have the asset. The asset is gone. So the idea that, quote unquote, whites was able to have all of this land and it built all of this wealth, that's not true. As a matter of fact, most of the rich people in the United States, if you look at where they get their wealth from, it is Facebook, which was not around when Tulsa was burned. Microsoft, which was not around when Tulsa was burned. That kind of stuff. Like, these big tech companies, like even, families that was like old railroad money and stuff like that. Even they're not doing that well. Like if they own an asset for a really long time, it's probably worth billions and billions of dollars. But it takes a lot of time to grow that. And you have to keep it in the family usually. But people can come in and buy those assets at any time. There have been people who have come in and bought huge pieces of assets, like the J.P. Morgan Chase. J.P. Morgan, his family sold the bank. The J.P. Morgan's family don't even own that bank, as far as I know. I think, I'm pretty sure they don't even own the bank anymore. They just keep the name because the people know the brand. It's the same thing with a lot of smaller industries, and they just keep the name because people know the brand. But the owners of it aren't the people who created it. Like BET. BET was created by Black people. Black people don't own BET. They sold it. That's what you do with assets. You buy them and sell them. Okay, this idea that the racial wealth gap was created in these unfair ways is like, well, even if it was created that way, it was so long ago that it's not really relevant anymore. Okay, if you was playing the game correctly, you would have this stuff too. Nothing can really stop you. Now, there is, like I said, there is some government issues, like you had, like the building of the highways was built through black communities sometimes, well, most often, especially in Los Angeles and Detroit. You had a lot of black middle class or black poor areas, depending on who do you believe. Their areas were torn up, but that's illegal government seizure, right? That's eminent domain. For some reason, people don't want to get rid of eminent domain because it's still happening today. People still use eminent domain to take other people's property. But let's continue. It says this contract rejects the racist and unsubstantiated rhetoric that ignorance, so-called grit, and personal responsibility are the sources of racial disparity, along with the accompanying neoliberal paternalism model in which government attempts to coerce or incentivize insinuated, quote, defective black people, unquote, to behave accordingly and make better decisions. It is abundantly clear that the racial wealth gap has nothing to do with black behavior and everything to do with white privilege. Again, no citations. And just because you reject something doesn't mean that it's not true. Okay? I don't know. Like, you can just look. Just look at how many people are out here trying to sell their grandfather's house, trying to sell their grandma's house. People out here taking money, wasting it. And it's not just taking money and wasting it. It's also putting yourself in bad positions. There are black people out here who have their children in debt. You have people out here who put the water bill in their daughter's name. The daughter is 7. That's the black community. These people, they lie. They live in a land of make-believe. I grew up with this shit. I knew more children with water bills than grown folks. Okay? I knew cable bills in 12-year-olds' names because they're completely inept. They don't want to pay the bill, or they already got bad credit. They run around destroying their own credit, and then you have these quote unquote intellectuals, and they basically run in defense for you. No, people make bad decisions. That is the problem. The problem ain't the money. The problem is what you're doing with it. And I'm not even going to the whole paying $300 for gym shoes and $10,000 for chains and $500 jeans. Like that's low hanging fruit. Okay, I'm talking about having multiple children out of wedlock and then having your paycheck be attached to 2 or 3 different households. Yes, you're going to be broke. Okay, you're going to definitely be broke when you work at GM or Ford and you make 20 some odd dollars an hour, but you got 3 baby mamas. It's over. You're not going to make any money. And guess what? They are going to be fucked up too because they can't live off of a tiny piece of your paycheck. And your children can't either. That's one of the number one problems in the black community. But he says that it has nothing to do with black behavior. What does that mean? So that means that you're an absolutely perfect, didn't do nothing person or a group of people. You never did anything wrong. Everything has to do with that's a lack of agency. Okay, you have no agency whatsoever. You could not have made any better decisions. You couldn't do it, despite the fact that there's millions of black people who come to the United States from other foreign countries and do well. The fact that there are still millions of black people in the United States who go on to do well because they make better decisions. They don't have children out of wedlock. They don't spend an exorbitant amount of money on going out and doing fancy shit or trying to keep up with the Joneses. The NFL produces black millionaires every single year. Niggas still end up going broke. So this is the preface of what the contract with Black America is built on. It's built on, we didn't do nothing wrong. We're the victims. Give us money. Absorb yourself of white privilege. It is absolutely ridiculous. It is nonsense. So let's get into some of the stuff that they want. So it's saying the case for neo-reconstruction. Neo-reconstruction is an aggressive initiative meant to redress past wrongs systematically imposed on Black Americans economically throughout many generations. Wrongs that have been a severe negative impact on African Americans both economically and educationally. The specific case for a plan of neo-reconstructionism is presented later in the document. Then why did you put it here? A commission will immediately be formed and empowered to quickly put a plan into action. Come on, man. Come on. The same thing separately, a plan will be devised to make Native Americans whole within the same timeline. What? What in the hell are you talking about? Look, you can't fix the past. You can, and this is what Thomas Sowell calls the quest for cosmic justice. It is the I was wronged at some, my ancestors were wronged at some point in the past. Everybody can play that game. Okay? Like you can always just say, well, we're going to give it to Native Americans. Native Americans is a really big block because they spent a lot of time killing each other too. The fact of the matter is war and quote unquote injustice is kind of normal for human beings. You know, like it wasn't until we learned how to trade and create contracts, capitalism, that we can make ways for everybody to survive at one time and share resources, that this stuff's kind of started to die down a little bit, because in real worlds, you be at war over access to a river. Okay. If you, because somebody be like, hey, look, you eating all the fish, I'm gonna have to chop your head off, B. That's not gonna happen. My soil is fucked up over here. I need your corn. Let me kill you and take it. Or, all of our women is dying off because of a famine or because we don't have, there was no such thing as prenatal care. So, you got women bleeding out or something like that. We need women. We're going to raid your camp and take women. This idea that somehow these injustices are new and fresh and came up out of white people is bullshit. Let's see what else they have to say. Affirmative action for all secondary schools, colleges, and universities, public and private. So a complete government seizure of the university system. I mean, it's already happened, right? Because the government already essentially owns the universities because they fund pretty much all of them. But to think that you're going to have force affirmative action onto private schools, all secondary schools, it is. And then, of course, they try to justify this stuff by throwing statistics at you. There is no statistic that can tell you that you are not allowed to run your own enterprise. They should never have started this shit. This is why, and I get, it's kind of controversial to say, but the Civil Rights Act was a mistake, dog. It was, because they told people that you didn't own your own property, that the government essentially owned your own property. Instead of letting people be discriminatory, and then the people who were being discriminated against gave them the opportunity to compete with them like black people did. You didn't want me in your store. I just created my own store. That's how you had black neighborhoods anyway. That's how you got Tulsa. That's how you got Rosewood, because black people were not allowed in the white parts of Tulsa. So they made their own theaters. They made their own grocery stores. Okay? But now you're going to say, we're going to demand you to put us in our stuff. Put us in your stuff. Like Eric July said, that's just for losers. What is this? Local funding for schools will be determined by an equal per student fund for all students throughout the state. That doesn't make any sense. Some schools are going to have more students than others. So, and then you also have this belief that if you throw money at a problem, it automatically fixes the problem, because they believe that the problem with the education system is there is no funding. But if you look at some of the charts and everything, you'll see that funding for education has gone up routinely, and our output, as far as whether our students can read and do math, has gone down. And we'll find out why later, okay? Because I'm pretty sure it's in here. But we're getting a terrible, terrible education for our kids by pretty much turning schools into, jobs programs for teachers. And this is why most of our schools suck. Mandatory civil rights and anti-racism classes in all elementary schools. Black scholars will write textbooks and curriculum adopted for these classes. Again, jobs program for mediocre Negroes. You can't sell the book. So what you're going to do is you're going to government force your bullshit narratives onto students in a mandatory anti-racism class. This is why black students can't fucking read. You're too busy shoving bullshit Martin Luther King in their fucking head and not making sure they can read and do math. Instead of teaching them about economics and how to take care of themselves, about taxes and stuff like that, you want to teach them about how they were oppressed. You want to teach them about white fucking privilege. This is the problem. What you choose to prioritize in these fucking schools is the reason why motherfuckers can't read. It's a problem. Black representation on all government, civil rights, and investigative bodies. I'm pretty sure most civil rights attorneys and shit like that are black. Let's be honest. The NAACP basically manufactures them Negroes. Reform gerrymandering. Who cares about that? More polling sites in minority and black neighborhoods. Okay. Juneteenth to become a federal holiday. Okay. Juneteenth is really supposed to be a holiday in Texas, but they decided that, oh, it's the true ending of slavery. Okay. Equal health care facilities in all neighborhoods, regardless of demographics. Considering the government doesn't really build hospitals. I mean, they can, sometimes they do. Sometimes they just fund hospitals. You have to want people to build it. See, they just want to, where does the money come from to build equal everything everywhere? Where's that money going to come from? It's going to have to come from you and me. This is a fucking communist manifesto. You're talking about a completely government takeover of the healthcare industry. A formal admission of an apology to black Americans for past wrongs. They've already done that. There was already an apology. I believe it was passed in, 2008 or 2011 or something like that. There was this bullshit symbolic apology. It was stupid. It was a waste of everybody's time, but they did it anyway. So here the big issue here is the massive bank lending and finance reform, because they don't believe that black people can't get loans due to bad credit. They just believe it's skin color, right? Everything is skin color, but again, you didn't do anything wrong. It's all white privilege. But at least with this situation, you could say they did bail out the banks when everything went under. So you kind of have to say, do you have the right to say they can't do anything to these banks when the U.S. government bailed out these banks? Like, that's why bailing out the banks was a bad idea. They should have let them go under. But there's a lot of so you have this silly shit here. Rates on black loans federally and from banks to be the same average rates as whites. That's illiterate. That's financially illiterate. People are not picked by race. They're picked by credit score. So whether you're Katrina Jenkins or Kaylee Ray Jenkins, well, your probably name wouldn't even be Jenkins if you're white. Kaylee Ray, whatever white people's name are, Hart or whatever. They're looking at your credit score. It said, okay, so they said 4 qualified black Americans there, so I can't get too hard on them that. Let's see. For qualified black Americans, Federal Reserve to allow a one-time interest-free loan for home ownership. What? We're just going to give you a loan interest-free. This is robbery, yo. This is ridiculous. Federal Reserve to adopt a view employing modern monetary theory with the goal of maximizing employment, housing, and educational opportunities. Modern monetary theory. Spending will be constrained only when actual inflation appears, which is basically fucking, you're going to pretend that inflation didn't happen, though. That's the thing. You're going to pretend that it didn't happen. Modern monetary theory is, these people are just, you're just a guinea pig at this point, right? At this point, they're just pulling shit out of their ass. Modern monetary theory is bullshit. Nobody wants to hear that, dog. Change the decades-old credit scoring model to mandate consideration of consumer data on rent, utility, and cell phone bill payments. What? Okay, whatever. Venture capital and private equity funds that take money from police unions or other public entities must invest 13.4%, because that's the black population, of their total funds in black-owned businesses. You're going to tell venture capitalists and private equity corporations where they have to invest, and then what percentage of their money that they have to invest. It is absolute. Look, this is a communist paper, right? This is what people got mad at Ice Cube for. This is what Ice Cube is pushing. I'm not sure if I said that yet, but Ice Cube is pushing this, and they're actually mad. He's actually getting cussed out by fucking socialists because he's pushing this fucking fascist shit here. This is a fascist paper. This is nothing outside of the realm of the government. Judicial and public policy reform. I skipped a little bit. It doesn't matter. Recognize racism as a public health crisis that mandates a federal response. Racism is a public health crisis. It's a crisis. These are the people who are writing policy. These people are not serious. They're full of shit. Ban all privately run prisons, because you should be able to ban industries. Declare the Ku Klux Klan a terrorist organization. The Ku Klux Klan are not even relevant. Prison labor not allowed without consent. That's already the case. That's stupid. Lynching to become a federal hate crime is already murder is already a crime. Free nonviolent offenders incarcerated for 10 years or longer who have less than 5 verifiable write-ups. Write-ups can be challenged and given due process. Free all prisoners from marijuana possession. Okay, I agree with that one. Eliminate laws establishing mandatory minimums. I don't know about that. Eliminate 3 strikes laws. Don't know about that. I kind of like the 3 strike laws. And the reason why I like it is because you do want to give people a second chance, and then you give them a third chance. And if they out here now maybe you don't want to compound the situations where you have 3 strikes and 1 arrest, right? You have 1 arrest, but you get 3 strikes and your 1 arrest. Okay, but why would you let an armed robber out multiple times? Like, why would you want an armed robber on the street and he's been arrested like 5 or 6 times? Like, I don't see why you want that. That's kind of stupid. Once a prisoner completes his sentence, voting rights are restored. 100% agree with that. There's a lot of bureaucratic shit. Currently, the black American population is overrepresented in the military, as 17% of soldiers are black. The percentage of black enlisted soldiers is even higher. To compensate for this disproportionate contribution to our national defense, 5% of the Defense Department budget will be allocated towards beautification, education, and youth programs in predominantly black neighborhoods. So paying the motherfuckers for going to the military, paying for their medical care for the rest of their lives is not enough. That's crazy, right? Now, this is how you monetize black men, right? You take a black man, you put him in the military, then you suck up everything you can out of that man. Everything that you can get, every nook and cranny that you can get out of that black man's sweat, you get it. That's how it is. They ain't gonna monetize women that way. It's the EPA to inspect all water supplies. Yeah, the EPA is really great. That doesn't make any sense. Let's see, the constitutional amendment codifying expansion of the 13th Amendment by the courts. What? Amendment will abolish slavery in any form. There is no slavery in the United States. There is no slavery. Even if they talk that shit about, there being slavery in prisons, there is no slavery in prisons. They can't force you to work. Now, they can force you to, they pay well below minimum wage. But that's also because they got that, they got restitution, really. When prisoners, they usually have to pay restitution of some kind to people that they've harmed, or to the state, or, court fees and all that shit. So it really just comes out to like 13 cents. It's really dumb. And the prison system is fucked up because of how much everything costs, like to make a phone call or something like that. It's really predatory. So I can agree with wanting to do some type of change to that system, But I also agree that, there is a financial penalty to every crime, and you probably should be working that off. So it says police reform. Qualified immunity will be eliminated. I agree with that. Mandatory malpractice insurance to be carried by police officers like doctors and lawyers do. I agree with that. Municipalities liable for officers' unconstitutional actions. Okay. Federal laws regarding police misconduct to change from standard willfulness to recklessness. While recklessness still poses a high bar. They playing equivocating with the words here. Police unions can be held liable and sued for shielding bad cops, suppressing evidence. Okay, that's fair. Mandatory dashboard and body cams. In the event that they are turned off and the incidents recording a serious injury to death respective, it would be considered a felony punishable by prison unless proof of malfunction. That's nonsense. Now I will say this. Mandatory dashboard and body cams, I agree with that. But to be quite honest, what ended up happening when they started having these mandatory dashboards and mandatory body cams is it actually started exposing a lot of the people lying about the police beating them up. Now, it did also expose a lot of people being shot by the police. But it also exposed that a lot of those shoots were actually good shoots because people were chasing police with guns or chasing them with knives or trying to fight them or whatever. And this was a thing that was in California. Black Lives Matter, when they was in their original orientation, back when the BART thing happened, I forget what the young man's name was. They made a movie about him. But he got shot by a BART cop in California. The guy thought he was wielding his taser. He was really just shooting a pistol. And they wanted mandatory body cams. So they implemented mandatory body cams. And then it started being like this rash of people saying that the police beat me up, the police brutality. And then the cop would turn in his recording and it wouldn't be nothing. And then they started saying, oh, it's illegal surveillance. It's unconstitutional surveillance. You need to get rid of them. So it depends on how this turns out. But I agree with the mandatory body cam. I don't know about and I don't think they should be turned off. I think they should be turned on the moment they come to a scene, unless it is malfunctioning. But I don't know if it's going to be a felony. That just sounds retarded. Cam footage to be released within a week for incidents resulting in death. You release it when you can. Elimination of no not warrants. I agree with that. Mandatory name tags and affiliation requirements. Name tags. I think most police officers do wear name tags. Chokeholds illegal nationwide. I'm not going to agree with that one. Whistleblower protection expanded within an active. Now, the reason why I don't agree with chokeholds being made illegal is because you don't want to take non-lethal options off the table. The more non-lethal options you take off the table, the more lethal force becomes more likely. Because you're going to end up having to wrestle with these people. As somebody who has had to deal with people who are acting up, I can tell you, and I had children, so I can tell you straight up, if you did anything, it's child abuse. That's just kind of how it is. If a kid was wilding out and you did something inappropriate, you put them in a headlock or something like that, even if it's just to calm them down, it could almost be considered child abuse. But so in these situations where you're going to have these folks who are wilding out, maybe on drugs or something, you might need to do something to get them on the ground. Otherwise, you're going to have to shoot them or beat them with something. And you don't want to do that. Now, you also don't want a guy like strangling some dude in a chokehold for 10 minutes either. But you need to be able to give a guy some options to take a guy down, to get a control, to grab a joint. And the head is a good thing to grab because it's easy to control. And if you take a guy and you take his head and you take him down, the rest of his body is going to go down too. And it's easier to get a guy, and maybe he's not going to calm down, and maybe he's going to continue to spaz out, depending on if he's on drugs or not. But the bottom line is, if you take non-lethal force off the table, you just increase the likelihood of lethal force. Tampering with evidence results in the automatic dismissal of force. I agree with that. Crime to intentionally withhold exculpatory evidence. I agree with that. They just have a list of things here. Loss of pensions if convicted of a felony or greater while on the job. Okay, I agree with that. There's a lot of this stuff as far as police is concerned I actually agree with. Now here's some shit. Civil rights history will be taught the first month in police academy or other training. Classes should include history of black codes, the black codes, and Jim Crow laws. Shit that don't exist. Why the fuck do you need to know about Jim Crow laws? These things do not exist anymore. It's just a jobs program for bureaucrats. It said, upon initial contact with any citizen, the officer must state the reason for contact. Well, you can ask. I mean, you're supposed to ask. It's supposed to tell you why they're stopping you. It said, no duty to speak. Police not allowed to escalate a situation merely because a person refuses to talk to the police or answer questions without an attorney. In some places, you don't have to give the police officers your name or anything like that. But it's basically a situation where you have to ask them, are you being detained? Now, what that means is if you're being detained, that means that they're preventing you from leaving. If you are detained, even if you're not being held against your will, basically you're saying, can I walk away? If you can walk away, you have a right to walk away. This is redundant, right? You have no duty to speak to the police officers. If you're not being detained, you can just walk away. But then again, they don't know that. Military grade weapons. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Will not be brandished in public unless gunfire or deadly force required. I don't know what a military grade weapon is. That doesn't make any sense. Eliminate civil and criminal asset forfeiture, as it gives police departments economic incentive to charge crimes. That is absolutely true. Civil asset forfeiture is a fucking civil rights violation, as far as I'm concerned. Shoot to wound policy in the event of an armed suspect. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Shoot to wound. No, you shoot to stop the threat. Don't come at the cops with a fucking knife or anything like that, unless you want to get killed. Entertainment industry reform, because I'm a full believer. This is really rare among libertarians, is that your right to self-defense does not disappear because you put a badge on. Okay, you still have a right to want to go home to your family too. So if a motherfucker coming at you with a knife or a gun and you end him, then he just got ended. So who cares? This goes back to the whole, I can never do anything wrong. It's always other people who do something wrong, right? You have people who are wielding knives, and yeah, I think, police officers who shoot people who got like broomsticks. Like, that's stupid. You have to look at the weapon and be like, okay, the weapon is non-lethal. It's a broom. But if it's a baseball bat, maybe that's different, especially if it's an aluminum baseball bat, especially if it's a pipe or something metallic where they can break your arm or knock you clean the fuck out. You can hurt somebody with a broom, but you probably ain't gonna hurt them too bad. But if you're attacking somebody with like a metal shovel or something like that and they end up getting shot and killed, I mean, too bad. Entertainment industry reform and reparations. Yes, we got to get involved with the entertainment industry. Mandatory funding of quote-unquote black studios by the largest Hollywood studios, record companies, and television studios and networks to compensate for years of lack of support, stereotyping, and damage to black culture. Fuck you. Licensing of public airways to broadcast networks such as NBC, CBS, Fox, ABC must require black produced content. Fuck you. Minimum of 13% black cast and crew. Fuck you. Okay. What the fuck? Is this really that important? Is this what you guys want? Rep 13.4% of all the cast. Shut the hell up. What's a 13.4%? How do you get a 0.4% of a person? Numb nuts. Monuments and institutions. Eliminate all Confederate statues. Rather than destroy them, they need to be kept in the National Archives, Smithsonian Institute, or whatever. Whatever, man. All uses and displays of the Confederate flag or on government grounds or on property with public access is illegal. No, it's cultural. Rename all streets, schools, public structure, blah, 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 after Confederate soldiers or leaders. Rename with black heroes or white abolitionists. This is nonsense. Memorial built in D.C. to the victims of attacks of police force resulting in deaths of permanent disability. No, not because here's why. Not everybody who is killed by the police is unjustified. Therefore, you don't. Now, maybe if you want to say people that it was proven that it was not justified, that may be a good thing. Like you have names on a wall and you say these are people who were killed by the police and it was unjustified. That might be fine. So Black Americans' responsibility. Chronic poverty creates an atmosphere full of negativity, frustration, hopelessness, depression, alcoholism, drug abuse, crime, and violence. There are some conditions that plague the Black community, which is dealing with extreme generational poverty. As we begin to gain social and economic equality, it is our duty to clean up ourselves and our community. I thought we didn't do anything wrong. This contract is a two-way street. As we gain social and economic equality, we must begin to dissolve any bitterness as our heart for past wrongs. You shouldn't have any in the first place. How can you be mad at something that didn't happen to you? We must become better citizens who are more productive on all levels of American society. We must really step up after we pass the contract with Black America with no more excuse left in the kitty. You shouldn't have any right now. There shouldn't be any excuses. How many civil rights acts have been passed? How many? There's been at least there's been 3, 4? Because there was a Civil Rights Act in the 1800s. There's been at least 4 Civil Rights Acts. Come on, man. But at least this is something is weird, man. Our entertainers should be persuaded to deliver more positive content that leads our youth to make better choices in life. They're trying to even control what you can create now. A new pride must develop without new opportunities. Whatever. Falsifying documentation to establish descent from an enslaved person punishable by crime. What? Lying about being a descendant of slaves. This is the ADOS shit. You can get into ADOS shit at some other time. Black businesses who receive loans per lending reforms with over 100 employees will employ at least 50% non-Black employees. What? For all Americans, completion of rehabilitation programs for at least 28 days for first offense of illegal drug use. Failure to complete results in imprisonment. This is all ridiculous. The case for neo reconstruction. They don't understand that Reconstruction actually created a lot of the problems that they have, right? So Reconstruction, for people who don't know, is after the Civil War, the South was pretty much devastated. It was pretty much destroyed. So it became a period of what they call Reconstruction. This is when the Union Army essentially occupied the South, and were basically forcing the South into doing all of these things, like letting Black people run for like the legislatures and all that type of stuff, letting Black people vote. And all it really did was make white people really, really racist. Because that's really what happens. When you force things upon people, they tend to get bitter. Just like Black people are bitter for, some of the stuff that's been forced upon them, even though a lot of these people are not alive for this stuff. When you force a lot of the racial quotas and stuff like that on the people, you actually just made them more racist. It says, at the end of slavery, the Republican Party took the lead on attempting to fairly and justly integrate African Americans into American life. This was done through a government-led effort called Reconstruction. I just explained this. A period that lasted roughly from the passing of the Reconstruction Act of 1867 to the Compromise of 1877. Okay, at least that makes sense. Let's get to the neo Reconstruction. The two key aspects to the address: these economic impact. They're going deep into policy. Let's see. Through the institution of and racist enforcement of laws, like the Homestead Act, the Social Security Act, the GI Bill, redlining. I knew they was gonna bring up redlining. Fuck's sake! Oh my God, man! What in the hell? So they're going right back to the housing inequality stuff and calculation metrics, and they put a lot of woe is me Black people in these pictures. You got this picture of this Black dude getting kicked in the head by a white man. I tell you, these people they love poverty porn, oppression porn, I should say. Poverty porn is what Vice does when they do like Abandoned and those type of shows where they go through like empty department stores and stuff like that, empty malls. That stuff is pretty cool, but it's poverty porn. This is called oppression porn. When you have these black and white pictures of the poorest Black people in the world, these people are either old or dead now. Like most of these people in these black and white pictures are probably in their 80s. and will not benefit from none of this shit at all. Because by the time it gets passed, they'll probably be dead. So here it is: the recommended tactics for restitution. Mandate that descendants of African American veterans of World War II who are unable to capitalize on the opportunities afforded by the GI Bill should receive the NPV. I'm pretty sure that was in here somewhere else, and I didn't see it. Of those benefits today, or I guess probably the value. Start trust fund for asset building grants. You want the government to start you a trust fund? Get out of here. Mandate that all American corporations that benefit financially from slavery, get the fuck out of here. Launch a user-friendly national website and app support for rolling out this plan along with networking, training, education, or whatever. Create a pension system for purposes of investment. A pension system. These people are crazy, man. These people are crazy. The second area they want to address is education spending. As of course they want to just dump a bunch of money on people who then teach them how to be angry about civil rights acts and all that dumb shit. Of course, grants and the government's guaranteed set-asides. Obviously, they just want free stuff. And then, this is the crazy thing. You have a lot of black people on the right that get mad. When you say, all they want is Gibbs. They don't talk about being against the Gibbs, though. They just want to be like, all you say is, all these people talk about black people being on the plantation. And all black people want is free stuff. It's like every time I see anything that has anything to do with reparations, it's all about having free shit. It's never about, hey, cut taxes. Hey, get some of this shit out of here. Get some of this government the fuck out of here. You very rarely hear about that type of stuff. You almost always hear, you need the government to give you some money. Yeah, whatever. So they talking about a lot of this stuff is stuff that they already talked about. Guaranteed set-asides, national lotteries for education systems, and it's just everything about black history. Teach black history in schools. Now, this might be interesting. The focus on the black family. Any agenda that sincerely seeks to promote the best interests of African American community must strive to restore the black family unit of man, woman, and children, whether in the nuclear family or the extended family version that has been prominent throughout history. The father, mother, child paradigm has been the hub of any strong people. Okay, so what are you going to do about this? Because that's the problem. And this is page 19 before the black family was mentioned. The black see this is the problem, man. The black middle class, these mediocre Negroes, man, all they care about is themselves. They made sure to talk all about all the crap that they wanted, free houses, and They don't want to live in the hood house. They just want to manage the hood houses, because if they get to manage them, they get a nice taxpayer paycheck, but they don't have to live in the filth that the hood house is going to bring to that area. I have never seen, there's different levels of poverty, right? I grew up pretty hood, but we had a single family house, and we struggled, but we had a single family house. What I had is and I couldn't afford a lot. We had bootleg cable. I bought shoes once per quarter. Having a video game system or something like that was a fucking blessing. I didn't have any money for regular hobbies and shit. But then I took a trip to the projects where almost everything is government owned. My God, it's it's a completely different level of poor. It was Detroit. The Detroit projects was looking at Mississippi or Alabama on TV. I'm talking about babies running around snotty nose, barefoot in the dirt. It was absolutely horrible, horrible. And I've never failed to see a project that hasn't turned into that eventually. It's endemic in this fucking system. That's what happens with government houses. People who don't take care of themselves, don't take care of their most basic responsibilities, end up in those fucking houses. Sorry. That's just how it is. Some things attract certain people. An easy lifestyle attracts people who don't want to put in the effort. And if they don't have to put in any effort, they're not going to. And it has nothing to do with them genetically. It has, because white people are the same way. It may not be the projects, it might be the trailer park. It might be the same thing. But this thing gave me a headache. All right, so let's jump over to Donald Trump's platinum plan and see what the crossovers were between the two concepts.